Those whom the gods seek to destroy, they first make mad. Hello, I'm Graham Dale, and that was a saying attributed to the Greek playwright Euripides. I have to say, successive British governments must have been mad, completely and utterly mad, insane, to have hollowed out the British military to the extent where now we can't defend ourselves, let alone our allies. The incoming Starmer government commissioned a defence review, which should by now have produced a defence investment plan, showing in detail how the MOD intends to spend its budget over the next 10 years. This plan should have been published by now, but is running at about 12 months behind schedule. And I can only assume that the poor devils at the MOD are scratching their heads to come up with a coherent plan as to how they can spend their limited budget within the context of the current geopolitical threats. Keir Starmer has recently met with our Gulf allies in the Middle East, basically to reassure them that Britain is a credible and capable ally who can and will come to their assistance in times of need. Unfortunately for Starmer, whilst he was there was an embarrassing incident, a further installment, if you like, in the saga of HMS Dragon. You'll recall that HMS Dragon was 3 weeks late in being deployed to the periphery of the war zone in the Eastern Mediterranean. Well, now Dragon, sadly, is back in port, undergoing some essential repair and maintenance work because apparently its onboard water supply isn't working correctly. Now, a few weeks prior to Starmer going to the Middle East, he did in fact attend an international defense conference in Helsinki, where he issued a very stern warning to Putin that Britain was ready, willing, and able to interdict any of his shadow fleet who tried to transit the English Channel. Now, notwithstanding that threat, several of Russia's shadow fleet have in fact transited the Channel, and no intercepts have been made. Now, this appears to be due to the fact that the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, has ruled that such acts would be contrary to the international law of the sea and therefore illegal. And further, that if a shadow tanker is actually diverted to a UK port, then the international crew on board would be entitled to seek asylum in Britain. And we would once again be faced with the depressing rigmarole of having to deal with multiple asylum claims. Now, Putin's response to what turned out to be Starmer's hollow threats was essentially a two-fingered salute. Not only did he continue to send tankers through the Channel, last week 2 of them were actually escorted by a Russian frigate. Now, this frigate is very well armed, including with cruise missiles, which would put London very well in range should things have got out of hand. But there was no chance of that because the Royal Navy had no battleships to deploy to shadow or escort the tankers and the Russian frigate through the Channel. So they did all that they could do, which was to engage the Royal Fleet Auxiliary Tanker Tide Force to shadow the little group. Now, the Tide Force is manned by civilians, not Royal Navy sailors. And it is very lightly armed with 2 30mm cannon, which in the context of the Russian frigate wouldn't be sufficient to blow the skin off a rice pudding. Now, as I say, the crew of the Tide Force are in fact civilians. and their union, the RMT, with their usual impeccable, exquisite timing, have decided to call out their members on strike unless their recent pay demands are met in full. Now, I have to say, in times of national need, one really would like to think that a union leader of the stature of Ernest Bevin would be around. Sadly, apparently not. The sad truth is that Britain is incapable of defending our homeland. And this is a seriously bad time to be run by two human rights lawyers. And so I would repeat my call made a few weeks ago that money must be produced for the MOD immediately, and that the way of doing this is to reduce the overseas development aid budget by an immediate cut. And I would suggest we need to release £10 billion from that budget. And also that the welfare budget should be cut. And again, I would suggest by at least £10 billion. And further, a little point which has been of irritation to me over the years, and you may not be aware of it, but the defence of the Irish Republic, the defence of their coastal waters and their airspace, has been provided entirely by the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. And we've been doing this for years under a memorandum of understanding. But the Irish Republic don't pay us a penny for doing so. They've basically been freeloading for decades. And I would suggest that a payment from them would be quite in order. And bearing in mind the current costs of providing defence for the Republic of Ireland and the costs which have gone back over decades, I would suggest they cough up, well, let's say £5 billion. I think euros would be acceptable as well. But I do think we need to get something out of them for the service that we are providing. Now, as I've said before, any money that we can produce for the MOD must be spent on purchasing proven defence systems to provide the defence we need for London, for our main military bases such as Faslane, and for our essential infrastructure. It shouldn't be handed over to the wastrels at the MOD procurement department to give them the opportunity to blow another £6.5 billion as they have done on the Ajax fighting vehicle fiasco, where, having spent all of that money, the Ajax can't be employed in battle because the poor soldiers who are supposed to run it end up either stone deaf or being seriously sick. It's absolutely imperative and urgent that we defend our nation, and we can only do this, I think, through acquiring existing proven military equipment. And why not talk to the Americans about their mothballed frigates and destroyers, where we could maybe buy some or even rent some to provide short-term cover for protecting our coastal waters. I'm not being alarmist in saying this, but I do believe that Britain is at its military most vulnerable since May and June of 1940. And without the protection of the Americans through NATO, which seems to be not a situation we can rely on, we basically can't defend ourselves. And as you would appreciate, a strategic nuclear deterrent would be completely useless in a conventional war. So the government, as I've said before, it needs to act decisively, and it needs to act now in defending the British homeland.